Hi, I am Kristen Call, and this is my presentation over case study number 2. This case study is about Sam, and Sam is a 5-year-old male who was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, and his current behavior of concern that we're focusing on for this case study is physical aggression. To briefly explain extinction, it is basically any time where no occurrences of a behavior are reinforced. So for this specific case, we utilize attention extinction and planned ignoring. So if physical aggression did occur, the therapist would block the behavior related to health and safety, providing as minimal attention as possible. Otherwise, removing all attention, including looking towards Sam, repeating the SD if one was placed, and prompting man. So our therapists weren't going to be repeating an SD if they did place one. They were not going to prompt demands. Once that physical aggression occurred, all attention is removed. If physical aggression did occur toward a peer, we had to basically put this in because we did notice that he was mainly physically aggressing toward adults. However, we wanted to put something in case he did physically aggress toward peers. So if he does, they would be immediately removed from the environment, the peer would, and then all attention would be removed, and they'd follow along that attention extinction protocol. The intervention was selected based on the reinforcement contingencies that were maintaining the behavior, which was attention from others, and we had to take into account Sam's skill repertoire. The assessments utilized for this case for Sam's case, were descriptive analysis. So we did collect ABC data for 2 weeks prior to selecting the intervention. And then we also did a brief functional analysis. So our BCBA went in and tested the behavior under 2 different conditions, escape and attention, to see which one was more likely maintaining the behavior. After the assessments, it was deemed that attention was the function of Sam's physical aggression. It was socially mediated, meaning basically reinforcement presented by another individual. So for Sam's case, reinforcement was presented by attention from others. Therefore, it was socially mediated. If it wasn't, it would be direct. Direct would be, people think of self-stimming behaviors, or you could think of walking into a room and turning on a light. Those things you have direct access to. You do not need others to access that reinforcement. But in this case, it was socially mediated in the form of adult attention. Differential reinforcement, specifically a DRA, is differential reinforcement of appropriate alternatives. This type of differential reinforcement, basically all other behaviors are put on extinction except for that appropriate alternative that you're replacing that behavior with. A lot of people think of when you have a client that's maybe kicking or screaming because they do not have a functional form of communication. They end up implementing a DRA. That's a functional communication training to give them a way to functionally communicate, whether it be with a device or pointing or signs. This appropriate alternative is replacing that crying or kicking that they were trying to use to communicate. In this specific case, we did utilize a DRA. The alternative replacement behavior for Sam was access manned request replacement behavior. So basically emitting any vocal command for attention, such as excuse me, hey, listen to me, or the person's name to get their attention. Also, tapping others with one finger to gain their attention. The type of reinforcer used is considered a conditioned reinforcer. So conditioned meaning it had to be learned to become reinforcing. If it was unconditioned, this would mean that you did not have to learn that this was reinforcing. It's just innate. So thinking of like food, water, those things, you were born and you did not have to learn those things were reinforcing. They just automatically were. For conditioned, you had to learn it was reinforcing, such as money, and in this case, attention from others. Stimulus control is basically anytime a behavior is emitted more often in the presence of a stimulus than in its absence. For stimulus control, Sam basically had to learn what to do in the presence of a certain stimulus. So in the presence of, in this case, an adult or a peer, he had to learn that tapping them on the shoulder, saying their name, getting their attention, things like that. When there's other people in the room, that's what he would do. So in our antecedent interventions and strategies, we put in prompting, shaping, honoring, all vocal commands for attention in the absence in the presence of others, and then shaping vocals that are not socially appropriate to more socially appropriate emission. So if he was cursing or yelling, then we would say like, oh, you could get my attention by tapping me on the shoulder. So technically we are providing attention for that cursing and yelling to get that physical aggression to go down. But yeah, that cursing and yelling, we're providing brief attention just to shape that vocal. So we basically had to do this to gain stimulus control of when others are in Sam's environment and he wants to get their attention, he would emit the behavior of tapping them on the shoulder or emitting a command, more absence in the presence of that stimulus of others. This was my presentation over Sam's case study number 2. Hope you enjoyed.